In the fall of 1837, a young servant girl named Mary Stevens was walking to her employer's home in South London when something lunged at her from the shadows. It was tall, thin, dressed in a dark cloak, and according to her terrifying report, the thing gripped her tightly with clawed hands and tried to kiss her. She screamed, and just like that, the attacker vanished. But it wasn't just the assault that made the story catch fire. It was the way he escaped. Witnesses claimed the figure cleared a 9-foot wall with a single bound. It didn't walk, it leapt, impossibly high and with no sound. Word spread fast. Soon, the newspapers gave him a name that sounded like something out of a penny dreadful. Spring-heeled Jack. At first, many thought it was just one isolated attack. Some deranged man in a costume, perhaps. But in the weeks that followed, new reports surfaced. Different parts of London, different women, but always the same pattern. Red eyes, claws, a long coat or armor, and a superhuman leap into the darkness. The fear grew, and so did the legend. By early 1838, Spring-heeled Jack wasn't just a rumor, he was a citywide obsession. Newspapers couldn't print his name fast enough. Parents warned their children about him. Posters went up. The Lord Mayor of London himself, Sir John Cowan, received a flood of letters from citizens demanding action. One of those letters read, "It appears that some individuals," I'm going to try to do this with like a British accent. "It appears that some individuals have laid a wager with a mischievous and foolhardily companion that he durst not take upon himself the task of visiting many of the villages near London in 3 different disguises, a ghost, a bear, and a devil." That's my shitty accent for you. At first glance, this could seem like a prank, but then came the Aldershot case. In public fear turned to full-blown hysteria. On February 19th, 1838, Jane Aldershot answered a knock at her front door in East London. A man stood there, claiming to be a police officer. He told her to bring a candle. He had caught Spring-heeled Jack. Jane handed it to him. The man grabbed her by the neck and spat blue flames into her face. She described the attacker as wearing a tight-fitting oilskin suit with a strange helmet and glowing red eyes. She fought him off, and her screams alerted her family. The attacker bounded away, leaping over a garden fence as if it were nothing. That same week, another young woman, Lucy Scales, was assaulted by a tall, cloaked figure who emitted blue flame and vanished into the shadows. The police now had multiple eyewitnesses. The press turned this into the story of the decade. England had its own demon, and no one could catch him. What makes Spring-heeled Jack more than just a footnote in folklore is the volume and consistency of the reports. These weren't limited to London. Sightings came in from as far as Liverpool, Sheffield, and the Midlands. Each time, people described a tall, thin figure, cloak or tight black suit, clawed hands, sometimes metallic, glowing or red eyes, an unnatural leap or escape, in some cases, flame or sparks from the mouth. The Sheffield incident in 1843 is worth noting. Several people reported being assaulted by a leaping man in a white mask who scratched at their faces and laughed maniacally. The town went into lockdown. The mayor deployed constables to patrol nightly. But they found nothing. The attacker vanished again without a trace. Then in 1877, nearly 40 years after the first reports, British soldiers at Aldershot barracks reported a figure who jumped past sentries, slapped them in the face, and vanished into the woods with incredible speed. One guard claimed he fired a shot point blank and it passed right through him. Not all reports were attacks. Some described a figure simply standing silently on rooftops.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
Meme pops to my head. Speculation about Jack's true identity wasn't limited to pub gossip. It was debated in newspapers, parliament, and even among the early police forces of Victorian England. Theories exploded, and nearly all of them involved around one thing: his inhuman ability to leap. The nickname Spring-Heeled was just catchy. It described something no average person could do. That, more than the claws or the glowing eyes, made him supernatural in the public mind. One popular theory pointed to mechanical argumentation. By the 1830s, England was brimming with inventors. Tinkering with spring-assisted boots wasn't science fiction, it was plausible. Some claimed Jack wore specially constructed footwear that allowed him to vault over fences and walls. Others believed he was a stage magician or acrobat who used circus tricks to frighten people. And this wasn't entirely far-fetched. The Victorian obsession with stage illusion and mechanical devices gave rise to countless gadgets, including early flamethrowers and prosthetic claws. If someone had the right money, they could create something terrifyingly convincing. Then came aristocratic prankster theories. The most infamous being the Marquess of Waterford, known as the Mad Marquess. He had a reputation for drunken brawling, chasing women, and pulling cruel practical jokes. He was in London during the early days of Jack's appearance and was reportedly fascinated with alchemy and strange inventions. Some even claim he had a personal coat of arms with a demonic-looking figure, not exactly helping his case. But Waterford died in 1859. Jack, on the other hand, kept appearing well into the 1870s and beyond. That's when the conversation took a darker turn. If it wasn't one person, was it a shared delusion, a folk panic? Some began to suggest that Jack was more than a man, that he was a manifestation of fear itself, a living ghost story fueled by stress, repression, and trauma. Others leaned hard into the supernatural. Was he a demon, a shapeshifter, an entity conjured up during a time of spiritual unrest? There were also theories that bordered on conspiracy. Some believed Jack was a government experiment, a relic of industrial age experimentation. That theory may sound absurd, but consider the secrecy surrounding new technology at the time. Gaslighting, railroads, and even the telegraph were so new, so strange, that anything seemed possible. Still, none of the theories had concrete proof. Not one suspect was ever caught. And, as the decades passed, that uncertainty gave Jack staying power. To understand how Jack became more than a villain and turned into a cultural icon, you have to look at the power of the press. Victorian England was experiencing a revolution in print media. For the first time, mass literacy and cheap printing collided, creating a new wave of journalism that thrived on fear and spectacle. Enter the penny dreadfuls. Cheap, serialized publications filled with horror, crime, and scandal. Spring-Heeled Jack fit perfectly into the world. Within months of his first real-world sightings, fictional versions of Jack began appearing in stories, often as a masked villain terrorizing the innocent. Some iterations even made him a twisted hero, using his agility and fearsome appearance to fight crime by night, an eerie prototype of characters like Batman. But the real danger was how easily fiction blended with fact. People didn't always realize where the newspaper ended and the penny dreadful began. For many Londoners, every new sighting felt possible, because they were reading about him constantly. And as writers added new elements, blue flame, breath, steel claws, inhuman laughter, those details started showing up in real witness reports. Fear shaped memory. Memory shaped fear. Even more alarming was how social fears were backed into Jack's mythology. He targeted women walking alone, he struck at night, he impersonated authority figures, police, clergymen, nobles. He embodied distrust in institutions, a growing unease with urban life, and a fear of male predators hiding behind masks of power. So was Spring Heel Jack real? The truth is, he didn't need to be. He was believable enough, terrifying enough, and timely enough to become real in the public mind. And once he got there, he never fully left. After the initial wave of terror in London, one would expect Spring-Heeled Jack to fade into obscurity. But he didn't. Instead, his legend spread across England, adapting to new towns, new eras, and new anxieties. The sightings moved north to Sheffield, Lincoln, and Liverpool. In every place, the pattern stayed eerily familiar. In Peckham in 1872, a man reportedly leapt across rooftops with ease, landing silently and vanishing into alleys. In Aldershot in 1877, multiple British soldiers swore they were attacked by a figure who slapped them across the face and then disappeared with a supernatural jump. One guard even fired his rifle at the assailant, but the bullets had no effect. These events weren't just rumors. They made it into military reports and police logs. In some towns, locals formed vigilante groups that patrolled the streets at night, hoping to capture him. The fear was real. So were the footprints and claw marks some claimed to find on rooftops and door frames. By the early 1900s, Spring-Heeled Jack had shifted from threat to symbol. He was referenced in stage plays, serialized fiction, and even children's games. But then came one last unsettling sighting. In 1904, in Everton, near Liverpool, several people claimed to see a figure leap between rooftops with incredible ease. Witnesses described glowing red eyes, a long coat, and a high-pitched laugh that echoed down the cobblestone streets. Police searched the area, but as usual, found nothing. It would be the last widely reported sighting. After that, Spring-Heeled Jack faded from headlines, but not from memory. To truly understand Spring-Heeled Jack, we have to examine what he wasn't. He wasn't just a ghost, he wasn't just a prankster, and he wasn't entirely fictional. He lived in a gray space between fear and folklore, part real, part imagined, and part manufactured. Let's dissect the legend. Supernatural leaping. Some claimed Jack could leap 10 to 20 feet in a single bound. While that sounds absurd, it's not impossible to imagine spring-loaded boots or a gymnast with stage training, creating that illusion. People aren't used to seeing anyone leap over 6 feet, let alone entire fences. Glowing red eyes. Easily explained by light reflections, especially from oil lamps or gas lanterns. But during moments of fear, people often exaggerate or misremember what they saw. Claws and armor. Metal gauntlets were easy to fabricate. And considering the costume descriptions, a tight oilskin suit or a cloak, it wouldn't take much effort to appear otherworldly. Flame breath. Here's where things get strange. The idea of a blue flame being expelled from a person's mouth could be chalked up to alchemical tricks. Alcohol-based flame illusions were used in theaters as early as the 1700s. It's conceivable that someone could hide a small flame mechanism or use a chemical reaction to frighten their target. Still, for all the explanations, there's no solid evidence tying any one person or group to the attacks. No prankster was caught red-handed, no gadgets were ever recovered, not even a hoax confession emerged later. What we're left with is a figure who existed at the intersection of technology, folklore, and fear, a kind of proto-cryptid, one shaped just as much by the media as by the streets. Spring-heeled Jack didn't just terrorize Victorian London, he carved a niche into the human psyche, a reminder that the line between the rational and the impossible is thinner than we'd like to admit. Unlike ghosts or vampires, Jack felt modern. He wore clothes, he used technology, he attacked people in ways that were just believable enough. And that's what made him so chilling. He wasn't a fairy tale monster, he could have been your neighbor. A man with a costume, a man with a plan, a man who could disappear without a trace. And what really stuck was that no one ever stopped him. No justice, no closure, just more questions. Jack became the archetype for future boogeymen. The Slender Man, the Mothman, the Hat Man, urban legends that thrive not on logic, but on atmosphere, fear, and silence. We don't fear what we can see, we fear what's just out of reach. What darts into the shadows, what clears the rooftop before we can blink. And in that way, Spring-heeled Jack is eternal. Today, Jack rarely appears in cryptid documentaries or paranormal podcasts. He's too old, too rooted in history, and yet strangely modern. His story doesn't have the simplicity of Bigfoot or the romance of the Jersey Devil, but maybe that's what makes him perfect for Cracked Relic. Because Spring-heeled Jack represents the forgotten fear, the kind that walks home with you after the fog rolls in, the kind that doesn't show up in pictures or leaves footprints you can follow. He is what happens when mass paranoia, press sensationalism, and a touch of reality collide. And maybe that's why no one ever caught him, because Jack wasn't just a man, he was fear itself, given form, given a face, and given the ability to leap into legend. If he were alive today, would we believe it? Would we say it was a hoax, a viral marketing stunt, a drone with LED lights? Or would we just stare up at the rooftops wondering if maybe, just maybe, some things never really land?